This is Hennepin Avenue in South Minneapolis. It's a relatively busy thoroughfare that runs from the downtown area through the Interstate 94 corridor all the way through the highly populated uptown neighborhood. The road is known for the high number of small businesses, particularly restaurants and cafes, that occupy it. Right now, the road has a relatively basic design: two car lanes each direction, as well as space for street parking on both sides. However, there's a slight problem. The road's an absolute traffic nightmare, and especially so during rush hour. It's frequently jammed with cars, and the bad, outdated design is partially to blame. For example, there are no protected left turn lanes at most of the intersections, which means that whenever someone wants to turn left, they end up waiting there for a considerable amount of time due to the amount of oncoming traffic. This in turn causes a backup of cars behind them waiting to go straight due to being unable to switch lanes in time. This situation creates congestion, dangerous conditions. For example, when someone tries to change lanes or turn quickly to avoid getting stuck in this situation. And I've even noticed some road rage at times. It is quite simply bad design to not have protected left turns on extremely busy roads. The other option here, which some of the streets have, is to prohibit left turns at these intersections. But guess what? People don't always follow rules. Well, don't worry, because the city knows this road is full of problems, and that's why a major redesign proposal is in the works. Too bad they have to get past bureaucracy and angry constituents before anything can be done. But anyway, let's take a look at their plan. This diagram outlines where the road sits now and where the proposed redesign takes it. As you can see, these are two considerably different designs, although they use the same amount of space. A car-inclined American might instantly think of widening a road when traffic becomes a problem, but that isn't possible with Hennepin Avenue. There is simply no more space to widen the road, unless you want to demolish dozens of small businesses and destroy the character of the neighborhood. And we know from induced demand studies that widening a road doesn't even solve traffic in the long term. So the city's outlined the goals of this project. 1, it's to improve the sidewalk and intersections for all users. 2, it's to consider a protected bikeway in Hennepin Avenue South. 3, it's to create space for improved transit stops that work with the future Metro E-Line rapid transit. 4, it's to replace aging traffic signal and stormwater infrastructure. 5, maintain and improve mobility for transit and motor vehicles. And 6, meet the city's transportation and climate change goals. So, it might surprise you that there are actually less car lanes on the proposed redesign, considering that excessive car traffic is an issue. In fact, it might seem completely counterintuitive. So let me use an example to show you why it isn't. According to the city, during peak hours, buses account for 3% of traffic, yet they move a whopping 47% of people along Hennepin Avenue. This perfectly illustrates the problem. The large majority of private vehicles that travel along streets like these are single-occupant vehicles, and they take up a considerable amount of space for the single person they tend to transport. Methods like buses, biking, and especially walking can transport considerably more people while taking up considerably less space. The problem isn't that Hennepin Avenue can't handle the amount of people. The problem is that it can't handle the amount of private vehicles. The only way to improve car traffic, or traffic in general on this road, is to shift our priorities on how we transport people. If we provide more space for car alternative transportation, we're actually increasing the capacity of the road due to prioritizing means of travel that take up less space. This is why the supposed counterintuitive redesign is not counterintuitive at all. The only way to solve car traffic is to provide viable alternatives. There are a few mindsets we need to abandon if we want to redesign our roads like this. We need to abandon the mindset of driving into the city, having ample parking, and driving back to the suburbs. This type of living does not create sustainable cities, and instead creates traffic-congested asphalt-topias that are ugly and undesirable. City real estate is extremely valuable, and as American cities continue to grow, developers just aren't going to pass up turning a large parking lot into a 300-unit apartment complex. If you're still in this mindset, it's time to acknowledge that it's not the future. Another mindset is that driving is the only legitimate means of transportation to be accommodated, especially in dense urban areas and with the increasing costs of owning and operating a car. If we want equitable cities, we need to recognize that walking, biking, and taking transit are completely legitimate means of travel. Let's examine some of the concerns from people regarding this plan. One of the major concerns, which seems obvious, is what about all the street parking? Where will people park who are patronizing the businesses along Hennepin Avenue? So this diagram here shows current parking lots in purple along Hennepin Avenue, which already take up a large amount of space, but that wasn't enough. And apparently neither were the ample amount of side streets which all allow parking. There is also data showing that parked or parking vehicles cause a large amount of crashes on the street, which doesn't really help the case either. This is an important question. Does taking away street parking negatively impact businesses? I would argue no. The vast majority of vehicles that drive along this street likely don't even notice the businesses they're passing, or even if they do, they're extremely unlikely to stop. However, if someone is walking, they are moving much slower and closer to these businesses, and they don't have to go through the hassle of finding parking to turn and enter the business if they want. Besides passing vehicles, we have vehicles that come from another area of the metro to visit a specific store or restaurant. This goes in line with my argument about reducing the drive into the city from the suburb mindset. A business should cater to local residents, in an area like this that is especially people within walking distance. Even from personal experience, I can say that I spend considerably more time and money at the corner store right down the street from me than a restaurant across town. I don't see local traffic being an issue at these places, especially if we continue to prioritize higher density housing along these corridors. And let's be honest, if your business can't survive from local traffic, it isn't likely to do well anyways. Another concern is about the presence of dedicated bus lanes and why they're necessary. This is a more general question and has been explained in detail by many other people, so I'll just shortly summarize the argument. Nobody would choose to ride the bus if it gets stuck in the same traffic as cars do, because it is less convenient. However, if the buses have their own lanes that can zoom right around traffic and get down the street faster, it would incline more people to ride the bus, which would in turn also reduce vehicle traffic. Like I said before, buses can transport several times more people while taking up much less space than private vehicles. So in making bus lanes, it's prioritizing more efficient means of transit. But right now we're left with all these cars parking in the current bus lanes, which aren't dedicated at all. So yeah. Okay, so the future of the project is very much in question because there's all kinds of bureaucratic disagreement, mainly from people who don't understand the project or who are opposed to it for various reasons. It's been a contentious topic here in Minneapolis, but I would like to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts on this proposed redesign? Would you be for or against it, and why? I've included a link to the city website which outlines a considerably more amount of data regarding the project, which makes for an interesting study. So let me know your thoughts, and thanks for watching.